story is called Harold and the Purple Crayon. One night, Harold decided that he wanted to take a walk in the moonlight. Well, the first thing he needed was something to walk on. So he drew a long sidewalk. And then he drew the moon. And he walked along the sidewalk, and the moon went with him. Well, he walked along and walked along. But after a while, he got tired of walking on the sidewalk. He thought, I'd like to walk in the forest. So he stepped off the path. The moon came with him. But now he needed a forest. So he drew a tree. It was an apple tree. It was a small forest with just one tree. Now Harold wanted to eat those apples, but they weren't ripe. So he thought, I need to leave someone here who will guard the apples so that when I come back, there'll be some to eat. So he drew a ferocious dragon to guard those apples. The dragon had scales and sharp teeth and a waggling tail and long claws. Well, that dragon was so fierce looking that it even scared Harold. And his hand holding the crayon began to shake. His hand shook. And suddenly Harold found himself in the middle of a deep ocean. Blub, blub, blub. Well, he thought fast and held on to his purple crayon and drew something that would help him stay afloat. Well, he could have used floaties, you're right, or a life raft, or even a life preserver. But Harold drew a boat. And he climbed in and sailed away over the waves. The breeze was cool, and the moon sailed with him. But after a while, he decided he was ready to get off the boat. Now, when you get off a boat, you throw out something big and heavy called an anchor. So Harold threw out the anchor, and it landed on the sand. Harold climbed out of the boat and began walking along the sand. The sand was hot, and Harold was reminded of things that he did when he went to the beach. One thing was eating. They always had a picnic when they went to the beach. Harold thought, I'm hungry. I'm ready for a picnic. So he drew a blanket on the sand. And then he thought, for a picnic, I need some food. Now Harold's favorite food was pie. So he drew pie. He was hungry. So he drew 9 pies. Let's start at the beginning of the alphabet and name some kinds of pie. The alphabet starts with A. A for apple pie. B for berry. C for chocolate and cherry and chess. Oh, what about coconut? And then Harold thought, what about peach pie? and pecan pie and strawberry. Now, when you draw Harold's picnic, you can draw whatever pies you like. But Harold drew these: apple, berry, chocolate, cherry, chess, coconut, peach, pecan, and strawberry. They all looked so delicious that Harold cut a slice from every one of those pies and ate it. 9 slices of pie. That's a lot of pie. Harold was very full when he finished the 9th piece of pie. But there was still so much pie left, and Harold felt bad about wasting food. He needed someone to help him eat the pie. So he drew a hungry moose to help him eat the pie. And that moose was very happy to eat all that delicious pie. Harold also drew a hungry porcupine to help eat the pie. And Harold went off along the sand and left the animals to eat the rest of his picnic. Well, Harold walked along and walked along, and the moon went with him as he walked. Well, he thought, this has been a lovely adventure. I've taken a walk on the sidewalk and in a forest, and I've sailed in a boat and had a delicious picnic, but I think I'm just about ready to go home. But I wonder where home is. Now, Harold knew that if he climbed up higher, he'd get a good look of what was in the distance, and he might be able to see his house so that he would know which direction to go in. So Harold drew a mountain, and he climbed up it. Well, at the top, he stopped to look off into the distance. But whoops, his foot slipped, and he found himself falling down the backside of the mountain, which unfortunately he had not drawn yet. Faster and faster he was falling through the air, but he held on to his purple crayon and he thought fast. He needed something that would help him float gently and safely to the ground. And so he drew a balloon, a hot air balloon. That he could climb into, which he did. He climbed into the basket and floated gently down to the ground. Well, he climbed out and began walking along, and the moon went with him. Now, Harold wondered, where could my house be? I'm really ready to go home. I'm tired. He began to think about what his house looked like. It was a building with a roof and windows and a door. So Harold began to draw buildings of all kinds. He drew small buildings with one door and just a couple of windows. And then he drew long, tall buildings with many doors and many windows. He drew building after building with many windows, but not one of them was the building that was his house. Harold needed some help. He looked up at the moon. He thought, maybe the moon can help me. He kept looking at the moon and thinking about how the moon looked when he saw it from his bedroom window. He thought, when I see the moon when I'm in bed, the moon is in my window. So he drew the moon, and then he drew his window around it. Well, now Harold knew exactly where he was. He was in his bed, looking out at the moon through his window. So he drew his bed, which was right under his window. And he drew the mattress, and he drew the covers, and he drew his pillow. And then Harold crawled in and pulled the covers up under his chin. Harold closed his eyes, and the purple crayon fell to the floor. And that's the story of Harold and the purple crayon. I hope your adventures under the moon are just as much fun.